I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are.
Two Cranky Creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings. Melissa, what are we cranky about today?
We are cranky about our vision to execution.
Perfect. Yes, that makes me cranky as hell. So, everyone, today we are with Melissa Johnson, and I will let you introduce yourself, Melissa. Take it away.
Hey, ladies, or there might be a couple gentlemen. I'm Melissa Johnson, mom, surface designer, and watercolor artist. Live in the Midwest, surrounded by lots of golden cornfields. Actually, currently just a lot of snow.
Yes, me too.
I picked up a paintbrush and lettering tools in 2021 and learned of surface design a year later and have just really ran with it.
That's awesome. I love the fact that I think between the three of us, we're all 21 or 22, right? And we're not talking about like, yeah, I started back in 2012, So I just kind of like that connectivity between us.
Yeah.
So thank you and thank you for joining us. We really appreciate having you here. So we're talking about how not being able to pull out what's in our head pisses us right the hell off. So
Yeah. That idea when like you see something or you have an idea and you're like, I want to make that happen. And then you sit down and what you come up with, what you create, whether it's on your iPad or paper or whatever, is nothing like what you had in mind at all. And yeah, that makes me really, really cranky, and it can make me really mad.
Sure. So let's share some stories. Let's help people relate to us. I know for me, the very fact that I could not magically take what was in my head and translate it to paper kept me from picking up any kind of art implement for a very, very, very long time. And then I want to say it was in 2018 or 2019. I had this random, really realistic thought, like, well, why don't you actually get trained? Why don't you learn? And then I realized I was going to have to practice. And so then I started trying to put a little bit of effort in. But even now, when I consider myself a pretty experienced artist, I still routinely have days where I've got this great concept in my head and it is just not translating to paper. Right. Or in my case, the iPad, because I do everything digitally. But what about you ladies?
Yeah. Melissa, you want to go? Give us an example.
Yeah, I was actually trying to think of example and several came to mind. But I think about when I first started, I was being hired by boutiques to license artwork. Some of the things that really were frustrating is spending hours creating artwork, like little hand-painted watercolor motifs and thinking they were going to be beautiful. But for that application, it was not beautiful. It was beautiful for maybe a different application, but it just didn't come out right. And I had just spent hours on this artwork and seeing it, laid out on a mock-up for baby clothes. I'm like, this is just terrible. And I have to go back to the drawing board and start over again.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Carrie? What's a frustration for you?
One of my things, I think I still do this on a regular basis. Actually, I'll give you an example from literally today. So I had this idea. Actually, a friend of mine gave me this idea. So I'm going to have to give him credit if I ever make money on this. But it's a cat. I just put it on my website. It's a cat walking away from a litter box because this is my humor. And he's kind of flinging some litter and it says, I'm done with this shit. And my friend, he's not an artist. He comes up with great ideas. He told me the idea and I'm like, that's brilliant. But I was trying to draw this like foo-foo fluffy white cat. And I was trying to draw the cat where it looked like it was walking away from the litter box, but also with one of its paws flinging litter off to the side. Like, you're like, ugh, like I'm done with this, like with your hand. And it was really hard. I was literally sitting there redrawing and creating a new Procreate document, naming it 4, 5, 6, 7. I named one like fuck or something. I was like, I can't get this to work. Because the thing is, when I was drawing it, I had this idea of the picture in my head, but it kept looking like the cat was like walking on one leg, or he was unbalanced, or how would the cat like anatomically, because I still want it to make sense. How would the cat anatomically be doing this? And I was showing my boyfriend, who's also not an artist, but he understands, logic, I guess. And he's like, nah, that's not working. Because I'm glad he's honest with me. And I'm like, well, I can't do it. And I just put my iPad down, and then I went and ate, which helped because I hadn't eaten all day. Oops. And after I walked away for like an hour, I'm like, all right, let me try it again. And I started all over again. It was just a sketch. And I got it. And I had to kind of refine it, obviously, a few times. But my first thought was, I can't get this idea onto this iPad. I give up.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's really easy to do that. I got real cranky today.
Yeah.
And when I get cranky like that, I just walk away and I come back. And that was the perfect example. And I ended up like loving it and finished it. So, but it's like you have to push past that. And it definitely makes me cranky because not everything you sit down when you start drawing, it's not going to come out right the first or 10th or 30th time. You may have to keep redrawing it and keep trying.
Yeah, agreed. And that was applicable to like some of these, like the story I had mentioned. I had to come back at it and rethink like the concept in general. What am I trying to do here? Instead of like trying to make something, like you said, a square and a circle, or a circle and a square, I had to come back at it and restart again. And like you said, it always comes back better if we just give it a second, third, fourth attempt. And we've all heard this. You have to make a lot of bad art to make good art.
Yeah,
it's so
true.
It is so true.
Yeah.
And I think our culture contradicts that very concept, right? Like that is a fact. If you're not making bad art, you're not trying new things, you're not pushing yourself, you're not, exploring the boundaries of who you are as an artist. But at the same time, we have this culture that's like, instant gratification, right? Or, my personal like overarching pet peeve of do it before you're ready. No, practice for a long time. One of the things I appreciated that Bonnie Christine shares is how she took a whole year and I think she set the goal of like 100 patterns or something like that, and so she created 100 patterns. I'm not saying you got to create 100 patterns, but I think you do need to take time to explore who you are as an artist and accept who you are as an artist as well. Like I'll never forget, I took a drawing class because I was like, this was 1996. I do remember the year. It was 1996. And I had in my head what it meant to be an artist. And that was like these realistic pencil drawings, you know what I'm saying? And so I was just taking this basic drawing fundamentals class, right? And it was I guess a survey class. So we did pencil, we did charcoal, sumi-e, like it was all these different things. And we get to the charcoal, right? And I don't know if it was about me or the teacher more, but like we're doing charcoal and I've been struggling. I've been frustrated. I've been pissed off the entire class because nothing I draw looks like I wanted to draw or wanted to come out. And so I remember it was a charcoal of like a stuffed animal, right? That was what she had set up. And so I'm doing this charcoal and she walks up behind me and she goes, I think you need to accept that your medium is charcoal. And I said, no, it is not. I do not like this. This is not the way I draw. But, like I found those drawings maybe 10 years because obviously that was like 30 years ago. So I found these drawings like 10 years. I was like, oh my God, they're really good. Like they were actually good considering I had no experience in charcoal whatsoever, but I rejected it wholly at the time because it didn't look like a hyper realistic pencil drawing, which is what I had decided art would be if I ever put pencil to paper, And so
that's something really neat that you just said there, because I feel like other people see what is innately beautiful about our work way before we do.
Very true.
Yeah. And then I thought of another pet peeve too while we're on the call.
Go right ahead.
when people kindly are saying you're so talented. Oh, no, no, no. We've put a lot of time and effort into honing this.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Melissa, that is so insightful and so true. And it almost negates all of our hard work. I mean, it's not meant that way.
No, it's
It's a
not.
compliment, but it almost is like, yeah, I wasn't born with this. I
Mhm.
made it happen from hours of blood, sweat, and tears and ink.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's why our creative community gets so close, so quick, and so supportive because we understand that of each other, that that's what the life that we have chosen as a
Mhm.
creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think part of it, like all of the things that we explore kind of throughout this podcast, so we've talked about rejection, we've talked about a bunch of things, and so like, and with us as surface designers, it's a unique little world we live in, because we're not fine artists, quote unquote, we're, all of these different things. And so it makes us a tight little community, which is nice, which is definitely nice.
But I struggle with that too, because as an artist, I want to be a fine artist and I also want to be a pattern designer. And I also want, it's difficult to juggle that.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I think if I manage to pull it off, I think I'm starting to find that middle ground, right? Because like I'm working right now and this is at least 2 years in the making. But on what will be a very large gallery installation, but it's in the end, it's all surface patterns. And so I think we have a role in the gallery world if we're willing to carve it out for ourselves. And I think too often we even ourselves accept we don't have a place there. And I've decided that's just not true. I'm like, all right, we're gonna do this, and I personally, even if it never gets out anywhere outside of Wichita, like I'm doing gallery installations. So
I
with
think that's awesome. Well,
yeah.
and just because it's not there, I mean, look at Marcel Duchamp, right?
Mhm.
There weren't urinals in art museums, and now there are bananas on
Right.
walls and all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
you just have to kind of and that, at least in the art world, it is about taking risks. So, you're not in traditional banking or insurance trying to
Right.
take risks.
Right.
So, I think that's awesome that you're doing that though.
Well, hopefully I can make it happen. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but I'm trying. I'm laying the foundation. So we'll see.
You're going to.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So,
I have the
but
vision for you.
thank you. But
Yeah.
that comes back to again, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and I think that, and Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of the reasons we ultimately conceptualized this podcast is because everyone talks about the shiny, happy, end result of all of this, but not enough
Mhm.
people are talking about, no, you know what? Yeah, I know you're getting messages in some of these classes, start before you're ready. I know you're getting these messages, just get out there and do it. But like, for instance, like at the moment we are recording this, Uppercase is doing its surface pattern design call, right? I submitted to Uppercase 2 years ago. What I submitted 2 years ago would never get submitted today, right? Because I look back on it and I'm like, oh, it was so immature. I'm not going to say it was bad. I don't do that anymore, but it was very immature. It was brand spanking new. I just learned how to design a patterns. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's clear and it's obvious to me now because I've spent those 2 years practicing and refining and developing my own artistic style, and I can recognize some of the teachers that I was watching at that time and those early patterns, and things like that. And I think that does not get enough love. That take the time, design,
Mhm.
design, design. And yeah, when you're pissed off because it's not working, I've shared in our Patreon, like I had to implement a no deletion rule. Like I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to, because I'm a digital designer, so like I'm not allowed to delete. If I don't like it, I have to walk away from it. And even if I come back tomorrow and I still hate it, like it's 30 days before I'm allowed to delete anything off of my iPad.
Yeah. Well, that's really, it's such an important point because my top selling design has been licensed in wallpaper, stationery, boutique, several things, and I don't like it. And it was one of my very first designs, but it has made me the most money, and people are still asking for it. So we don't know what other people are going to like. Our heart might be different than their heart or their taste. So there's no good art or bad art. Like you said, someone go tape a banana on the wall, and it might be the most amazing, thoughtful, thought-provoking art there is. So not deleting your art. And some of my first art is better to others. It's more marketable than my current art that's more complex and I think is more beautiful, but it doesn't sell as much. So we just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Very
And
true.
it's very subjective. Yeah. And I love, we were kind of talking about earlier, it's like, sometimes when I was beginning my pitching journey, I would look at all these companies. I'm like, I want to work in, let's say giftware or whatever. And I'm going to their websites and I'm looking at what does this company have? What does their art, look like on these products, on these tote bags, for instance? And I'm seeing art that is just not my style. And it's not like I'm not capable of making that, maybe. But I was not trained as a painter. I can paint, kind of, but I'll look at like these really soft pastel watercolors and then I'm like, well, I really want to license with this company. So then I'll sit down and try to make my own. And it's like not happening. And, now with some maturity and experience, I'm realizing I don't want to pitch that company because I'm not the right fit. That's not what I enjoy making. And that's also just not what comes naturally to me. So sometimes if I sit down and I have this vision of I'm going to make watercolors just like this gift company has on their tote bags, and they're not coming out the way, the ones on the company's website are, maybe I'm not the right artist for that, but I think it takes a certain level of maturity to walk away. Toni, you were saying this earlier, and that's okay too, because you can't who wants to do everything? I mean, you'll never, have enough time and do what you have fun doing and what comes naturally to you. It may take practice, but yeah.
Right.
I was just talking to another artist, Michelle Halleck, and she said she thinks she put it in her stories, and then we had a chat about it. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it.
Absolutely.
I just thought that was like brilliant. And then when you think about it, when you say yes to something, then it's taking away from something else that you really could speaks to your heart or speaks to you as an artist, instead of just forcing something.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And and this is also true, like when you think about building your portfolio, like if you don't enjoy that style of art, don't put it in your portfolio that you're pitching. In fact, Carrie was the first person to say that to me, because like she did my very first portfolio review. And then later on we were chatting and I was like, yeah, those particular things you like, I hated doing it. She's like, it shouldn't be in your portfolio.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is that's what they're going to want.
Yeah.
Can you do 100 more of these? And then you shot yourself in the foot. I know.
Right. Yeah.
I share that with my group, like what your Instagram grid and your socials, you should be feeding the world what you want to receive back.
Yeah. I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
Yeah. So, but going back to kind of like our original, like you have this idea in your head, I would say like, what are your all strategies? Like, how are you tackling that? So we've got this, well, Carrie, you talked about yours pretty well. I'm not saying you can't add more. I'm just saying like you hit it out the park the first time. But like Melissa, so like when you're struggling, especially because you are, am I right that you're primarily analog and then you digitize? Is that correct? Yeah.
Correct. I'm 100% analog.
Okay.
To then scan to digital. But it depends if it's a project, like a heart project for fun, or if I just have an idea for a collection, or if it's something I'm hired to do. I'll approach it a little bit differently. Do you want me to? Do you have a preference?
Please. No, however you want to handle that.
Okay, so if it's I get to do less of these now that I've become busier. But when I'm creating a collection, it always comes from like a strong memory, like a vacation or a week during the summer or a ski trip, something, not even a ski trip. That sounds pretty romantic, but just like driving to my parents' house. That was actually probably the last collection. We live on Dutch Lane. So I had this concept of all the feelings that occur from the mile drive country road from my house to my parents' house. Our our house to my parents' house. So there's cornfields and there's wildflowers and there's old farmhouses and barns. So I start this concepting and I'll write, I'll just brain dump like my initial concept, sketches, words, what I'm thinking. And then I'll start like popping around on Pinterest and on Spoonflower and reference books, vintage reference books, to kind of like solidify more deeply. And when I was first starting, it wasn't this organized. I kind of just jumped in, but then I realized that the collections didn't feel cohesive if it didn't have a storyline, if it didn't, if I really didn't think it out before I jumped in fully. So after that process, I'll start creating like lots of artwork. And then I'll scan it in and start playing. So that's for a collection. If someone hires me, a business or brand hires me to do something, lots of questions, head up with as many questions as I can, because I've run into not asking enough, and that causes a lot of back end headaches for both. So yeah, just asking a lot of questions, and then concepting, sending the concepts off to them, and then jumping in and editing when needed. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, for sure. And so what are your strategies when those concepts don't become the reality as you're drawing them out or painting them out?
Yeah, that happens. And I think that comes with experience. Like, you have this concept and it's beautiful, and you start sketching something, you're like, wait, this isn't looking fluid. This isn't looking romantic. I should have started with watercolor gouache. Why am I using a pencil here? Why am I using ink here? So you have to think of the application. And once you get experience, you won't run into it's not looking as much like I thought. The more experienced I'm getting, I'm finding that at first I'd have this concept and I just jump in without any, intentional thought. But now I'll be like, oh, I want to make this.
My dogs, I'm sorry. I have to mute.
It's okay.
But now that I've had a little more experience, if I know that I'm going for a certain vibe, I'll come in with watercolor or gouache or pencil, depending on the vibe I'm going for. But I'm analog, so I'm sure it would be very similar in the tablet using certain brushes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So you
texture.
reevaluate like the medium or maybe how you're approaching it kind of from the get-go. And I was very intrigued. You started telling a story about you were doing some watercolor, I think, and it was going to be on children's clothing. So what ended up, would you be okay like walking us through? Because I would love to hear like what was going through your head when that happened. Because I'm pretty sure it's gone through a lot of people's heads and they've experienced that same kind of struggle.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I was kind of, when we first start, we want to show off like how much we're capable of, but sometimes it's not the right place and the right time. So I made these you guys have, if you on my Instagram, you see these like bears, they're very intricate and, they look fantastic. But then when you try to put them on baby clothes, it's not the right application. I mean, it just didn't, to me, it didn't look right. They should have been more wishy-washy. They should have been more simplified. They're little, it's little tiny baby wear. I should have never gone in it with that much detail. It just didn't make any sense. So in retrospect, that boutique bought the design, used it, it got printed, it was all over the US. And I was like, oh, that doesn't really look that great. And that's really embarrassing. It was beautiful artwork, but as a designer, I should have realized that that wasn't the right application for it.
I understand what you're saying. I think that it's kind of like a twofold thing. I think one, what you're describing does come with maturity and experience. Clearly they were fine with it because they licensed it, right? So like, so that's not.
And
on
I'm
you
sure
in the
it's
end.
sold.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's sold too. I'm sure that we're our own worst critics, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. I think that strategically as well. I think that part of the struggle, I know for me, I think, yes, I do a lot more research than I did in the early days. I think one of the things that I've had to learn over the years is to have grace for myself when something is not working out. And, and I'm just there are times where, yeah, I could sit and I could take the 2 hours it's going to take for me to intuitively sketch, but that intuitive sketching is what's fucking me up. And so I will just go and get like, all right, I need to trace this 6 times, or
Yeah.
like, like, all right, I got everything else, but that arm's not working out. I will trace an arm. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm just done.
Yeah.
It's smart.
Because it's like those references or whatever you need, because it's like sometimes, that one little thing and it's just not clicking. And so
Yeah.
like get outside of your head. Don't be afraid to like go and do something completely different. I did I was a writer before I was an artist. I did a writer's workshop with Ray Bradbury's biographer. And he had all of these great like stories about Ray Bradbury. But he said that Ray Bradbury always had at least 2 or 3 projects he was working on because he'd hit a roadblock in one. And then he'd be like, all right, I'm done. We're going to go work on this other thing for a little while and I will come back to that. And I absorbed that. And so, like, if I'm really getting stuck on something, I will just, now granted, not my client work because you have deadlines, but like when it's for me, I'll walk away from it. I will put a client piece down for a day, at least. I'll put some space between it. But I've walked away from, personal projects for an entire month and then been like, okay, I'm ready to deal with you now.
Yeah.
So, but to have that grace for yourself that you're not, art is a practice.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, we don't talk about it that way. We talk about it as an art career, I think is the words that we use too much, but it is an art practice.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's something
an
that you do.
ongoing journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, and that's why styles change and evolve,
Right.
over time, because you're learning and you're doing things and you're taking classes and going to whatever, and your style will evolve, and you'll also get like, I think I did the thing that everybody does when they get Procreate. I must have like 100 brush sets,
Oh,
I
I have, somewhere around there too.
right?
Yeah.
And I use
I
the
only
same 10
use like
brushes.
2 or 3 of them.
I
Yeah.
use the
Well,
same 10
it's
brushes. Yeah.
it's the same thing with courses and art supplies. Like
Yeah.
everyone thinks that's going to be the thing that's going to take them next level, but it is. It's just taking the time to dive in and practice.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And it doesn't matter what medium you're using or what course you're taking or what motif you're trying to draw. If you don't put the time in and you don't experiment, then there isn't. That's kind of why we started this podcast. It's like the idea that there is one magic bullet. If I just buy this one course, if I just buy this one paintbrush, magically I'm going to become Picasso. And that's just not the way it works.
Right.
I also have to add too that like we all have experienced, having an idea of what we want to create, sitting down and not having it be what ends up in front of us. I guess here I go again. So slamming social media. Social media doesn't help because, when I look at people's art and especially if I look at like Instagram, I'm only seeing the finished product. And so I look at Instagram and I go, oh, that person did whatever. I kind of want to do my own, not same thing, but I'm inspired by that. They did a palm tree with a sunset and some flip-flops or whatever. I want to go do something, maybe I'll do like a beach chair or something. But the thing is, I'm not seeing the 50 steps it took to get to that and the sketches and the color palette experimentation and how many brushes they tried before they, and how many Procreate files they have or Illustrator files. So the problem is that we have what you were saying, Toni, with the instant gratification. We have this idea because all we see is the shiny end result that like that's where it gets frustrating and crankiness inducing is because we sit down and we expect to be, we expect to create what we just saw or something similar in like one go around.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way it works. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think those time-lapse videos don't help. Right.
No.
So
yeah. But you know what? I have a theory about those. You're talking about those Procreate ones?
Yeah, do share.
So, Procreate, you can do an initial sketch. And then if you pop your initial sketch in, if you copy and paste it into a new Procreate file, and then you kind of color it in and do all the fine tuning, it will not show necessarily sometimes, and you can edit it out. It will not always show the very, very, very beginning.
Right.
Because the video length is just going to be too long.
Right.
So I'm not criticizing anybody who posts those time lapse reels, but I think that can even be misleading because then you think, how did they just sit down and sketch that in 2.5 minutes and then they finished the art in 11 minutes? It's like,
Right.
or, however long the video, let's say, is 20 seconds.
Right.
Those time lapse videos can also be misleading though.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I mean, not to mention, if you change your color profile, it deletes anything that went beforehand. So if you spent 2 hours sketching something, then you realize, oh crap, I need this to be in CMYK. That's not in the time lapse anymore.
right.
But and like Liz Kohler Brown is really vocal about the fact that she hates time lapse videos, because she thinks it detracts from the effort it takes to create art. And so she's all about real time process, right? Like if you're going to show your process, show it in real time, in slow real time.
Yeah.
And there are arguments for both. I mean, I'm not necessarily, if you want to share a time lapse video, do you? I mean, like I don't have an issue with that. My problem with it is more in the lines of where Liz is going. And that's that, like I had to do a time study once as part of a course that I was doing. So like I did a time study of how long it took me to create my patterns. And I flow between all the stuff, right? So like I'll draw motifs from my most complicated patterns, I'm usually drawing the motif in Procreate, bringing that into Photoshop, and sometimes Illustrator. Carrie knows I hate Illustrator. So I avoid Illustrator at all costs. But so mostly I'm spending my time in Photoshop. So I have this poppies trailing floral that I did, and they're really detailed. And Procreate says it took me 6.5 hours to draw all of the motifs, and there were like 7 of them. And then I was tracking how long I spent laying it out and tweaking it, and that was another 17. I spent 17 hours. Now that just might be being OCD about like placement and things like that. But so that's 23-ish hours on one pattern. Now extrapolate that
Right.
out across an entire collection,
I
right?
can relate. It's not surprising to me.
You
Me
know,
neither. Yeah.
but so I'm not banging these poppies out, and if you even, and I don't know what it is about Procreate, because Procreate does not give me that grace, Carrie. Let me tell you. You see at me backing up, undoing, redrawing it 6 times every time I've done
Yeah,
a
I mean,
trend
it does show you. I like to think of it as your thought process in visual form.
right, exactly.
Like,
Well, the
oops,
truth
nope,
is,
undo, 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 undo.
Mhm.
well, the truth is, when you see that beautiful art in socials, it's because they vested so much time in it. It's
Yeah.
not like that's like you said, Carrie. It's just that's the end result.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think Carrie and I once talked about the fact we wanted to normalize ugly sketchbooks, right?
Yes.
I love that.
There are like so many beautiful sketchbook posts out there, and like, no shade whatsoever, but my sketchbook does not look like that.
Yeah. Mine has like weird wonky people that look completely disproportionate and just yeah.
Because I think that, the bad art is part of it, but we shouldn't even call it bad art. It's just like
Yeah.
transition. It's like your transitions, like from
Well,
beginning
it's
to
just
end.
rough drafts. It's
Yeah,
just rough
right.
drafts.
It's just
Yeah,
rough.
I keep several sheets of watercolor paper next to me when I'm creating, just to like see how a brushstroke looks or try a
Mhm.
color. Like, and they're really well, I think they're beautiful, but just because you're trying things and it's
Absolutely.
part of the process.
Yeah,
It's like, what
absolutely.
happens when I put this here and then I put this color on top of it? Oh, that's
Uh-huh.
kind of cool. Or,
Or,
oh, glad
ooh.
I didn't do that on my final piece.
Right. But I
Yeah.
think what if is probably the most important question we can ask ourselves in creation, right? I mean, some of my best patterns had a what if moment. And it might just be like, what if I throw this texture on here? Or like, like I recently was looking for a texture for a collection I'm doing for a menswear line. And I ended up using a rain brush. So it's rain. But I was like, oh, but if I like do it here and then I rotate it here, and I'm like, oh, that actually looks really cool,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's like,
Experimenting.
but it was an experiment, but it was also I chose the wrong damn brush. Like I meant to choose something else, and
Yeah.
somehow in the wonder of, I wasn't wearing an artist glove or whatever, I ended up in a completely different brush set than I thought I was in. And I choose this brush and then I'm like, oh wait, that's kind of cool. And then I'm like, oh, that isn't even what I chose. But okay.
You gotta
There was
love
a
happy accidents.
yeah, I was
You
gonna say
know?
Bob Ross moment.
Bob
there.
Ross.
Is that Bob Ross that would
Yeah.
say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy
Happy
accident.
accident. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
At the where I go to get my brows done, they have a life-size Bob Ross in the bathroom. I'm like, I need to buy one of those and stick it in the corner of my
Yes. All hail
know?
Bob Ross. I love him.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, agreed. Honestly, a lot of my favorite patterns are created out of like the artwork I wasn't intending to use. So I'll
Yeah.
start using the pretty pieces, the pretty motifs to create it. But then for some reason, I'm like, I like this wonky, messed up one more. It has more character.
Mhm.
And I feel like my favorite patterns have come from the wonky bits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go
Something
ahead,
to be
Gray.
said for wonky bits too. One
Mhm.
of the reasons I love doing florals, which I don't do that many anymore, flowers can be like in so many different shapes and sizes because they're organic and they bend and fold in different ways. So it's actually better if they're a little wonky because they
Yeah.
look more natural versus perfect looking, you don't see perfect circle tulips.
Right.
I just had this conversation with my 10-year-old because her flower wasn't perfect that she drew.
But that's a good thing.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think too, but I mean, can we agree? And feel free to disagree with me if you do, but like that perfectionism is also baked into our culture. I mean, like they have that whole service now for like ugly fruit or ugly produce. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's like that doesn't make it to the store.
Yeah.
And I mean, growing up, my grandmother and grandfather had a farm in West Virginia, and they always stuck us in like we were the city kids from DC, so they stuck us in the farm in the garden whenever we got out there. So I knew, like, because and I'm like originally I was like, yeah, this potato looks really weird. That's not what it looks like in the store. And my grandmother was like, that's because it's right from the garden, child.
Yeah.
So it's like, these things, like things come in all shapes and sizes, but even down to the idealized standards of beauty, and like, I read somewhere like the measurements or whatever of like models walking the runway are typically considered like would be considered anorexic or something like that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and like Barbie is like not
Would
sustainable at
die,
all as a
fall
human
over.
being.
Yeah.
I mean, but so like these things that they're all baked in, but yet every single one of us in this conversation is saying like my accidents or the things that didn't go the way that I thought they were turned out to be the best thing, or the thing that really inspired me or made me happy. And I don't think we embrace that enough as a culture.
I agree. I'm also going to tag onto that. This is a very surface design in general, surface pattern design tends to be a very female focused career path industry. And as women, we are taught to be very self-critical and very self-deprecating and to never feel like we're good enough. Like as a mom, people who are moms, oh, you unless you're super mom,
Right.
you're a terrible mother, which is a horrible message. And I think we are used to internalizing that kind of thing and then just accepting it and feeling terrible about ourselves versus being like, wait a minute, no, I don't need to be perfect. That's unrealistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm shaking my head and saying yes as I was doing.
Yes.
I was lettering earlier today, and it was like I was like, it's not coming out right.
Right.
My line is shaky. But yes, no, it's
Well, I
totally
drink
true.
coffee, so I have
Oh
a hard
God,
time
yeah.
painting. My paintings are like all over the place.
Yeah, my hands.
I have to be intentional when I know I'm going to letter or paint detailed work. I can't drink coffee.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Right.
Uh-huh.
But
Well, yeah,
yeah,
Smart.
go ahead.
The thing I find interesting when I'm drawing with a pencil and paper, my hands don't shake nearly as much as when I draw with my iPad, and I haven't figured out why.
Are
So
you using a toothy iPad cover? You
I
are, right?
am. Yeah, I used rock, paper, pencil.
Huh.
Is your arm resting differently?
It might be. I don't know. I'll think about that though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, and I drink decaf, so I don't have that excuse at all. So, but what do we want to leave people with? Like, what do we want people to walk away from this conversation when they're having that moment and they have this gorgeous idea in their head and it is just not translating to whatever their sketch pad, their watercolor paper, their iPad, whatever it might be. What do we want to leave people with?
I guess I'll go. So my advice is if you have this idea in your head and you sit down and you start trying to, make it, whether you're drawing or painting or whatever, and it's not coming out the way you want it to, pick a path. You have two options. You can walk away and then come back and try again, or either way, you need to walk away.
Mhm.
Or you can walk away and say, I don't want to do that because maybe that's not what is natural for me. And maybe there's a reason for that. And I don't have to do all the things.
Yep.
So
I love that. Melissa,
No,
what
I agree 100% because I've experienced this over and over again. Like if you get to a point where it just doesn't feel right and it's just not jiving, get up and walk away, and it will present two things to you. One, just like a refreshed mindset on it, a new approach on it, or starting over and saying this doesn't work for me. This isn't going to play out right. So I'm either going to try a different medium. I'm going to come at it a new way. But just giving yourself that mental space to just disconnect and come back with a fresh eyes and fresh mindset is so powerful.
I love that. And the only thing I would add is, have grace for yourself, but also, embrace what if, and, what would it look like? Just ask yourself, what if I did this? What if I got up and walked away? What if I did this differently? What if I did this thing in some way, and just see where it takes you, embrace the possibilities, and see where you end up.
And also push through the challenges too,
Yes.
because on the other side, even if it doesn't end up where you want it to, you've learned something, you've grown a skill set, and you've tried it, and you just come into the next projects with a little more wisdom and experience.
Love it.
yeah,
Love it. Love it. Yay. I think we're going to leave that there.
awesome.
So, Melissa, we have some fun hot seat questions. So, we're asking all of our guests these questions. Okay. You ready? They're
I
fun.
think so. Maybe.
Okay. So, what is your least favorite color?
Red.
Why?
Ooh, no hesitation.
I know, no hesitation. Why red?
It gives me anxiety.
Really? Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
It makes me feel unsettled. And then I'm
Wow.
looking and my lips look very red.
No, they're kind of pinky purple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that's funny because I think that is part of the color science of red. Like that's why so many gyms are red, because it's like supposed to make you like pump you up or whatever. But yeah, I can see that.
Well, and stop signs and red
Stop signs.
lights are supposed to at least get your attention.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're anxious, they have your attention.
Right.
Yes.
That's true.
To my point.
Yeah.
Right. Very true. Very true. Okay. So when you think about the spectrum of software, because some people I haven't been asking this question right. So when I ask this question, what I'm really thinking about is the spectrum of software we use as designers. So that could be Illustrator, Photoshop, Procreate, Affinity, all of the whole spectrum of those. What one do you like the least?
So that's interesting because I used to hate Photoshop because I learned in Illustrator.
Mhm.
But now I love it because I'm a watercolor artist and it shows the gradients better. I don't like InDesign.
Oh, yeah.
It just isn't intuitive to me. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Am I allowed to say one that wasn't on?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. No,
absolutely.
InDesign's, people use it for their portfolios all the time. So yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
jealous of all the Procreate users because it looks like things just come so fluently and things take me so long. But I know there's way more things to learn too. But no, I think InDesign's my cranky one.
Cool. All right. What is your least favorite movie?
I hate scary movies. Freddy Krueger.
Nightmare on Elm
Nightmare on
Street.
Elm Street.
No.
Yeah. My mom loved them growing up, or she still watches them, and she would watch them, and I don't like scary movies.
Yeah. Freddy Krueger is scary.
That's a tough one, especially with the concept. And I'm not going to say it because I don't want to put
Please
that in
don't.
anybody's head. But no, Freddy Krueger was rough. I had a hard time with that one when I was a kid. All right. What song do you like the least? That's our last one. Least favorite
So
song.
I was ready for like favorites. This is
I know
throwing
we
me off.
switched it up because we're two cranky creatives.
Oh, I love it, ladies. Oh my gosh. You're not that cranky though, by the way. My least favorite song. Oh my goodness. Can't think of one. This is hard.
Or genre of music,
Or
maybe,
genre of music
or
too, it's fine.
yeah. Like, if
Um,
you heard this on the radio, what would you be like? Oh my God, I'm turning it off.
oh, that's funny. Because I'm like one of those weirdos that finds something good in everything.
Oh, well, that's okay. That's good.
That's totally fine. Yeah.
Oh my
You're the
gosh.
least cranky person on our podcast so far.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
I guess I'm not a big fan of classical music.
Okay.
Okay.
That works. That works. We'll accept that. We will accept that answer.
Thanks, ladies. Sorry, it wasn't very interesting or humorous.
Oh no, it's totally cool. It's totally cool. So Melissa, before we let you go, tell everybody where they can find you online.
I think the easiest way is just at m.johnsondesign on Instagram.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Melissa. I don't know why that
That's a joy.
Thank you so
It
much
was
for
a joy,
joining
Toni.
us.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Melissa. Thank you, Toni, for coming on as a guest. Wait a minute.
I don't even know where that came from. But no, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us.
It was a blast, ladies. Thank you.
If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot.
I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.